Hello there, welcome back to another review. Today we're going to be looking at 1987 Clive Barker's Hellraiser, the original Hellraiser. Obviously loads and loads and loads of sequels, but today we're just going to be talking about the original, directed by, I say, obviously Clive Barker, and based on Hellbound Heart, which I've never actually read, so this is just me giving my thoughts and opinions on Hellraiser. Obviously the debut of the infamous Pinhead, who become like synonymous with this film and the franchise and everything. So I'll be getting into that today. Do I enjoy it? What I think about it? Is it a good film? Is it worth checking out? If you haven't seen it, should you check it out too? I'd say we're getting into that. I think it's quite an intelligent horror film. I think it's played quite, the whole film itself is played quite seriously. It's not in the same vein as sort of say Nightmare on Elm Street or Evil Dead, where there is sort of comedic in certain places, or like there's a sort of comedy undercurrent there. This film is actually played quite serious. It is quite deadpan, this film. And it's a very much, like I said, a very visual and serious one. Although it is a British horror, it was apparent that later on in the film the producers decided no, it's got to be set in the US. I did read somewhere, like I said, that basically it was going to be set in the UK, and like to obviously to get more sales in America, they made it like so it was set in America to, you know, just I don't know, just so people were familiar, audiences were familiar with the setting, that kind of thing. As mentioned, I do believe it is very well made. I think it's very well made, and I think it, above all else, it's well acted. I think the people in this do a fantastic job in Hellraiser. I think everybody plays their part, especially, you know, really well. I think when it came out, it received very mixed reviews upon release. But to me, I mean, it's because of Pinhead and the image of Pinhead, it's become, you know, sort of got a cult following, huge fans, you know, all around the world. But to me, the original I won't say about Hellraiser 2 at the minute because I love Hellraiser 2, but I'll just talk about Hellraiser 1 now. So basically, you have this guy called Frank. So this guy, you're introduced to him straight away. You're sort of introduced to him straight away, and he buys this magical box. Buys this magical box. You have no idea what it does. He buys this, and he's like, "What's your pleasure?" He buys it off this guy, and he wants the box. So he basically opens it up, and this is all within like the first minute of the movie. Then he basically gets ripped to pieces. Like basically his whole body just ripped to pieces. And then we meet the Cenobites. Now, Cenobites describe themselves as sort of angels to some, demons to others. I mean, you can it's any interpretation. Like I said, I've never read the book of this, so I'm just going on what the film presents and represents. And they basically grant like sadomasochistic pleasures to like those who call them. And then so he gets ripped apart by these Cenobites. And then Larry and Julia, Larry is the brother of Frank, they move into Frank's old house, just want to be happy. And it turns out like Frank and Julia had sort of a thing going on back in the day, like behind Larry's back. And it turns out Frank's into like the whole occult thing. He's into like sadistic stuff. So she slept with Frank like before she was going to get married to Larry. And sort of like, because she loves a powerful man. She loves a powerful man who takes control. And then we cut to present day. They're moving into, say, Frank's house. And I say, after, they're in like I say, there's a flashback of her and Frank getting it on, Julia and Frank getting it on. And then Larry cuts himself. Larry cuts himself on like this nail when they're moving in. And instead of like going to the kitchen, getting a plaster or anything like that, he runs all the way upstairs. Runs crying, like sobbing, like because he can't stand the sight of blood. Runs crying all the way to Julia. He's like sort of bleeding, and the blood sort of goes through the floorboards, where Frank's sort of remains are sort of underneath the floorboards. Which brings him like that sort of gives him life again. It sort of makes him awaken, just the blood coming like onto the remains of his body, and he sort of starts to come back to life. And he gets Julia to sort of lure people back to the house. And this was very much sort of the yuppie invasion time. So some of the fashion and the hair in this is, you know, a bit questionable. So she wants him to lure people back so he can sort of get his skin back and like rejuvenate and become like a human being again. Because as I say, he has been ripped to pieces. He's been absolutely torn apart. And she does this by sort of picking up clients on her lunch break, takes them upstairs and just whacks them over the head with a hammer, as you do. And then basically the daughter, Kirsty, Larry has a daughter, catches her, and she takes the box, opens it, Cenobites want to take her, and she's like, well, I can, if I give you Frank, will you let me go? And that's sort of the premise of the film. She's basically just making Frank sort of get back, because she has Frank's got like this hold over her for whatever reason, because like I say, he just takes charge of her or something, I don't know. But yeah, she's doing that for him. Daughter catches her, lures him back to Frank, because like he sort of got away, he evaded sort of the Cenobite's grasp, like he slips away somehow. So that's basically the sort of the premise of the film. Just a very quick sort of plot summary without getting too into it. I will say I did, like I said, mentioned, I did enjoy the acting in this. I think they all played their part extremely well. I think everybody, really, it does work. That everybody in this film, there's not one person who you think, they didn't put on a good performance. I think everybody in this is really good. There's a weird analogy of Larry and the movers. They're moving this mattress at one point, and they intercut that with the flashback of Frank and Julia getting down to business on the bed. So you got them sort of shoving this mattress, and then it cuts to them two sort of shoving together, if you get my drift, which I thought was a bit, okay, mattress, two people having intercourse, right, okay. I don't know what the analogy is there, but okay, whatever. It's never made clear, as I mentioned, it's never made clear why Julia would do all this for Frank. Like I say, other than that, he's just like a controlling, like, sadistic guy. I don't know, but he has this just power over Julia for whatever reason it may be. He just, I don't know, he offers her something no other man can, or something like that, I guess. And the first initial victim, she doesn't even really ask why she's doing this. Like, she doesn't even like sort of ask what happened or anything like that initially. It takes a while for him to sort of explain what's going on, but initially she doesn't really say what happened, what's the explanation to this, why are you basically just just not even rotting flesh, why are you just sort of not even a carcass, just this, what happened? I mean, you'd think you may want to know, if you're going to be luring in people that you've got to smash over the head with a hammer so he can sort of devour them and suck up their flesh and whatever it may be, you'd think you might want to know what's going on. Just, just give you a roundabout, idea of what's going on. I mean, there's an awesome scene after the blood, and this is why I love films like this so much more than like sort of horror films made today, where they just rely, or any film made today, where they just rely so much on CGI and green screen and all these kind of things. There's a wonderful scene when the blood sort of goes through the floorboards initially from Larry's finger, and like Frank emerges. I mean, there's some great effects here on Frank, the way he sort of comes out through the the floorboards. And the first hour of the movie, actually, the whole effects on Frank, the way every time you see him, he's slowly getting a bit more back to normal. He's slowly getting his body back. Every time you see him, he's a little bit different, and I love that. That's what I absolutely love this film. The first hour, especially in this film, just with her just luring the people back, so she, like I say, he can have their skin and that. Really, it's really it's entertaining. It's good fun. But and every time you see him, like I say, he's changed a little bit. Like, he's got a bit more on him. He's got a bit more flesh here. He seems a bit more rounded, and it's great. It's really good effects here. Really fantastic stuff. And I say, it just gets more and more and more and more. Always been a fan of more practical effects like that. Really have. They like things like American Werewolf in London, that kind of thing. For some reason as well, Larry never goes up to the room where Frank is. I mean, he does eventually, but initially when he moves into his brother's house, he never actually goes to check all the rooms. I don't think he ever goes in there at any point. He just, for some reason, just doesn't go in that room. I don't know why, but you'd think, like I say, you might want to check out every room in the house you're moving into in case there's damp patches, there's wiring that needs doing. He doesn't go in there. He's not worried about that room until, like I say, later on. Maybe I missed something. Maybe there's people out there that have seen this film like time and time again. I mean, I've seen it a number of times, but it's never made clear what she does with the bits and pieces that were left over from the bodies. Like, Frank, there's always some left when Julia brings him in somebody. There's always some bits. It's not like he completely gets rid of it, so there are some bits left. I know at one point you see her sort of carrying some of the leftovers out, but because Frank doesn't use sort of the whole bodies, so I'm never really sure what she does with all the leftovers that Frank leaves. I don't know, maybe somebody can let me know. Not as important, it's just like a little plot thing, I'm thinking, well, if she's upstairs, how's she gonna get rid of that? I don't know. It's funny, like, when you look at Larry and Frank as brothers, like, how two brothers who grew up together could end up so different, I have no idea. Like, how one could be like into the occult and all this strange, weird, wonderful stuff, and the other one is like a complete like wuss and just just a jerk guy. I don't know. The other one, like, say, one's such a coward and the other one's so psychotic. I have no idea what happened in their youth that made them so different. I just do not get it. A special mention should go to the engineer creature in this. I think that is the name for it. In the movie, that uses like sort of his feet to walk on walls. He's like this gigantic. I mean, it's like a slug with legs just on these walls. I mean, absolutely love that stuff. Absolutely love it. I did laugh as well how they bring Kirsty forward and as his daughter. I thought, because when she's first introduced, you think, oh, he's got a daughter, okay. But they actually bring her forward, because at the start, the first hour of the film, Julia's very much the centre focus of the film, even though she's sort of, evil, helping Frank sort of rejuvenate, and the daughter is sort of in the background, taking second place. But they gradually, as the film progresses, bring Kirsty forward, and I love that. I loved when a film ends on a different character, like the main focus, who you didn't actually start with. It just mixes it up a bit, and like I say, everybody in this does act really well. They do a fantastic job with what they're given. I think the script is really good. I think the premise is very interesting and good fun. And I do enjoy Hellraiser. As I say, I absolutely love it. Not sure. There's another thing at the end where, obviously Julia's been bringing Frank all these bodies and, helping him sort of get back to his human form. I'm not sure at the end why Frank turns into Larry after Larry sort of goes up, sort of Frank has it, like, sort of takes his body. Like, because Frank didn't turn into the other guys. He didn't start sounding like them, looking like them or anything like that. But for some reason, Frank turns into Larry at the end. Like, he comes in, like, Kirsty comes in and he is Frank. No, he is Larry, sorry. I'm not sure quite how like that worked, because I thought, I didn't realise he actually changed into them. But anyway, it's just little plot things that I'm not too sure. I mean, maybe some people out there can point it out for me, or tell me things I've missed. I don't know. It's just when I watched it recently and you'd sort of watched it again, I must have seen it God knows how many times, but I was never really sure why he turned into Larry at the end. It's one of them horror films that I think everyone should check out. Just get your opinion on it, whether you're into this this kind of horror film or not. There's no other horror film like it, I believe. I think it's very much of the time. I think it's very I think it's a very novel horror film. I know certain scenes had to be trimmed and cut. Also wanted, I think, Clive Barker wanted the music group Coil to play on the soundtrack, but was denied. But it's worth watching just to get your own opinion on it. I really do enjoy it. It's one of them films I can watch quite regularly and still find things in there that I enjoy, just because it holds my attention. It does run out of steam near the end, I will say. Like I mentioned earlier, the first hour of this film is really entertaining. It's really good. It's a very sort of scary, like I say, interesting premise, and with something different, like regards to other horror films. But as I say, it's very much a serious, straight horror film. No sort of comedy in this at all. And it's very much like a drama. You really do sense the tension between Larry and Julia. It's a bit almost like a soap, actually, like the way it's like she had sort of an affair with his brother and that kind of thing. But that's just basically the setup for what's to follow. And but as mentioned, the first 60-70 minutes of this are really good. Trying to bring Frank back, learning about Julia's past and all that, really, really good stuff. But if you've never seen Hellraiser, I think I advise anybody, if you're into horror, and you've never seen Hellraiser, please check it out. Because I think it is. I know a lot of people. I mean, you could probably say it is a classic nowadays. I think it is regarded to be a classic. I love this, and I do love Hellraiser 2 as well. But check out Hellraiser if you haven't seen it, and I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you soon.